I'm Coach Dave. Welcome back to Coach's Corner.
Come on.
Welcome back, Coach's Corner. Coach Dave McDonough here today, and we got a lot going on in the month of October here in the boxing world. Had some great fights, but we're really not going to go into that today. But we got a big event in Connecticut happening October 18th at the Mohegan Sun. We have the Connecticut Boxing Hall of Fame inductions, and I am honored today to have one of the inductees, a really, really fine gentleman, Joe Cusano. Joe, welcome to the show, and congratulations on your induction in the Connecticut Boxing Hall of Fame. Must be some honor for you, and we'll kind of tell everybody a little bit about your background in boxing and kind of have at it from there. I mean, you're a long-time official, long-time judge, many prominent fights that you watched over and judged, television fights, currently working with USA Boxing as an official and as a judge. So you're a busy man these days. Plus, you're a barber.
Well, yeah, but I'm in my retirement years.
Oh, okay.
My barber, semi-retirement years. But I'm celebrating 50 years as a barber. So this year,
God bless
50
you.
years.
Congratulations.
And I'm still doing it, but got a lot more time on my hands. I can't believe I did what I did in the boxing world while I was building my career. But
I think that's all of us with boxing, right? We're always doing something outside of it, and everything else.
Looking back at it, it came at a time when my business was being built.
Right.
And I was deeply involved in the boxing world. And I don't know where I got the energy to do it all, but I'm glad I put my foot out there. Thank you for having me, by the way.
This is an honor. You're a very well-respected individual in our sport.
It is quite an honor. I feel very honored. I feel humbled, but at the same time, I feel motivated to continue. I'm back involved in amateur boxing. After a few years of not being much involved as an official, I was on the board of directors for the Boxing Hall of Fame for a little bit. I had an opportunity to be in Willie Pep's movie, The Featherweight.
And we'll talk about that too. You have not only judging and involved in the sport, but we were talking a little bit before. Boxing finds, part of the show is, right, like everybody has a story. We don't only have fighters, and boxing finds individuals in many different ways, right? Right. How did boxing find you, and you found for the love of boxing, and you're here 40 years later?
I was 9 years old. My father took me to a closed circuit fight of the second Floyd Patterson-Ingemar Johansson fight.
Okay.
And I was just turned on. I mean, that was it.
And for the young people out there today, closed circuit is what pay-per-view is today, but it was usually in a movie theater.
It was in the old New Haven arena.
Or an arena, correct.
And, for a kid, that was a major event. And it turned me on to the sport. And boxing was on TV all the time.
Yeah, we had ABC.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about, late 50s, early 60s. Almost every night, Gaspar Ortega almost every night. And bonded with my father through boxing. He was a huge boxing fan. And as the years went on, I was pursuing my business career, my barbering career. And boxing was just something I was a big, major fan of. I've written some articles that got some publications, but I didn't have any official capacity. And then one day, my father calls me and asks me if I want to meet Gaspar Ortega at the house. And sure. I watched him on TV. And at this point in my life, I'm in my early 40s. I'm about 42, 43 years old. And so I go to my father's house. Gaspar had been running a drug rehab clinic for the city of New Haven. And at the time, my brother had some issues. So he was part of the program, and I knew that. And I knew that Gaspar was involved with that. And I always said to my brother, I would love to meet him. I'd love to meet him. When my brother finished the program, at some point during the program, he told Gaspar about myself and my father. So Gaspar agreed to escort him home. And when he escorted him home, my father knew about it, invited me over. And the amazing thing was Gaspar spoke fluent Italian to my American Italian parents. They grew up with immigrant parents, so they grew up speaking Italian. But Gaspar was speaking fluent Italian to them. His life was amazing. I had a lot of experiences with Gaspar as the next few years went on. But he is the one who initially lit my fire to get involved as an amateur official. He could see my passion, and I didn't know where in boxing I could find a niche, but he recommended that. And from there, he put me in touch with Sean Malone, Sr. And so Sean Malone and I became friends on a personal level, and he got me started too. So he was maybe my first mentor, got me into introducing me to the right people in the amateur program. And Ken Ezzo was my first chief of officials. So when I came on board, that was my first mentor in amateur boxing. And I had a great team that I was involved with. Bob Peterson was an amateur official at the time, and Jordan Johnson. And it was like a family. I felt real comfortable with them, and I took it real serious. And I went all out, and I got involved in just about everything, national tournaments and such. As Ken pursued his pro career, I moved up to chief of officials, and that opened up, gateway to get involved with New York and New York Golden Gloves. So I spent a few years refereeing the Golden Gloves in New York. I had the opportunity to do the finals in the Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
And it was just one thing leading to another. I had been all over the country for those next couple of years doing national tournaments and having some great experiences doing it and meeting great boxers in the early levels of talent development. I was seeing the early developments of guys like Jeff Lacey and
Left hook Jeff Lacey.
Yeah, Jeff Lacey and Andre Berto.
Yeah.
I was refereeing those guys in the nationals, Dominic Quinn. And then as the years went on and I went into the pros, I got to referee a lot of those guys in the pros as well. But nothing beats my first night in the amateurs. I'm going to regress just a bit because I had my very first night in the amateurs refereeing a local show at the San Juan Center in Hartford. I refereed 3 future world champions. I mean, that's amazing. I had Mike Oliver, Chad Dawson, and Travis Sims.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Travis was about to turn pro. So his bout was an exhibition bout. But the others were young, and I got to referee them in the pros. I never did get to referee Travis in the pros, but we connected.
This is one thing for people. Like, my background comes out of New York. I live in Connecticut now, obviously. And you know what? And you've been all over. The level of people in boxing in Connecticut, right? So when we talk about the Hall of Fame, okay, people in Connecticut Hall of Fame box, there's so many great names. Like, you're just naming some great names, like Sean Malone Sr., okay? We're talking about Chad Dawson, Mike Oliver, Travis and Tarvis Sims. I don't want to, both brothers were, high-level pros at the time. You were watching them on TV. Yeah. Referees, judges. I mean, just out of the state alone, we have, coming here now, I kind of feel when we go around the country, people ask, where are you from? Connecticut. They look at you like...
Connecticut's got great boxing history, going way back.
Yeah, going way back. Going back to Willie Pep, right? Obviously, right?
Pat Battolino before that.
Yeah. So, it's just... And like you, to see this stuff in the beginning stages and then to see... And I know Chad's involved now in the amateur level with his son in a gym and training. And, you've seen him in the beginning. Yeah. People see him on TV, and we see him now training. And it's just, the evolution is unbelievable.
A 10-year-old, And, it was great to see that talent. And, to recognize it. And to see that, God, if life doesn't screw this kid up, he's got world-class talent. And you could see it at a young age, but you know how life could screw up a boxer sometimes.
Yeah, it's a you know it. You've been around it. You've seen it. It's a difficult life.
Yeah, it's very
not
difficult.
You know, there's a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
Whether you're a fighter, a trainer, a coach, whatever involvement you are in boxing, it always seems. But what you were saying before, the relationships that we build throughout this sport that you see, and you know, gyms, fighters, and coaches are very welcoming people. I always found, like, you build relationships all over the country.
Absolutely.
You know, like you can call up. I know today I can call people up in a certain gym. What state you're gonna? Okay, yeah, I know somebody there. Connect with them. They'll take care of you the right way and everything else. But for you, starting in this at the amateur and pro level here, you know, with amateur boxing and pro level, tell us the difference. Take me back to when you started with these young fighters and at the level with the involvement of a lot of these people in the state of Connecticut. What do you see the difference today as far as, and we know, you know, the officials and everybody, it's all a volunteer.
I thought we had a lot more activity back then. I'm surprised there's still a lot of it. I'm back in the amateurs right now to some degree, and I am impressed of the activity that there is in the amateur. But I think there was a lot more activity back then, and I think a lot more professional activity back then on a local level. A lot more club shows.
Yeah.
I did a lot of hotel ballrooms and skating rinks and rundown theaters, which don't exist in the boxing world anymore.
Yeah, it's become costly. You know, we go back to, you know, ESPN was doing Tuesday night fights and Friday night fights, right? So you had 2 days a week that they were doing fights around the country, right? And, you know, you had your local promoters that were able to get a venue and put it on. But now if you don't have a big venue or a stream or pay-per-view, it's the cost of doing business for boxing has become so high.
Those insurance costs threw it over the top. I remember when that started to happen. And, you know, exactly that, the cost of doing business.
Yeah, sanctioning fees and
so it's harder for a fighter to build a career. It's harder for a promoter to build his career. But I think the promoters are doing their job. I think they do a good job. A lot of the promoters that I've seen develop, Jimmy Birchfield in New England, stays very active and he's grown. But from back when I first got started as an amateur, I went out to Colorado Springs and got some training there and the amateur level of officiating is very different than the pro level of officiating. But you need to get those years of amateur officiating under your belt.
Talk to us a little bit about that difference, because I find today that there's a lot of mixed reviews, that people don't understand the difference between the amateur level of scoring fights and refereeing fights as far as to the pro level. Kind of give me
one thing, thankfully, they have streamlined the judging on the amateur level as opposed to back then. They had a system back then that was just impossible to learn, deal with. They had like a 20-point must system where you gave points to the opponent instead of deducting points, and it was just really crazy. At least now they're a little bit closer to the pro level of the system of scoring. But in the amateurs, you got your levels. You've got your incoming junior Olympic fighters. You got your novices. So you're going to even officiate those levels differently. But it's a standard of fighting, of punishment that a referee will allow. We're pain facilitators. And there's a difference between the pros where they're fighting for prize, money, cash, careers, as opposed to the amateurs where they're fighting for trophies. I've always said every fight for every fighter is a world championship. Everybody that's in the ring at that moment, no matter what level that fight is at, is a world championship. As an official, I try to handle it that way myself. But I would give every fighter the opportunity to win. But if he's in 10-year-old kid and he's taking punishment, I'm going to stop that fight much quicker than if he's a 30-year-old seasoned pro and I'm in there with a different scheme of things.
Yeah.
So all of that, the main thing though, it's safety first. That's the main objective for the referee. Safety, fairness, protect the weaker boxer.
Puts you in a tough position because, look, I've been at the amateur shows and I know how it is. We're all enthralled in the moment. We want our fighters to do well. Judges and refs at times get bad calls. We've known this in boxing. People who really don't know boxing sit back and I hear it, oh, what are the judges looking at? What is the ref doing? But you don't have any experience in boxing. So what do you really know, what he sees or what he doesn't see? I had Don Treller on the show, right?
Don's a great judge.
Yeah, Don is
I
great.
go way back.
Yeah, Don gave great insight. Like, even for myself who's been in boxing, this is like what we see. But on the amateur level as a referee, okay, we're talking about safety. And, we got 8-year-old kids, 9-year-old kids, 10-year-old kids in there. They're not going pro next year. They may never fight. They may fight one fight and never fight again. They may fight 200 amateur fights, who knows? But you know what? I think, I have my own opinions on this, okay? I think as a young amateur, some kids fight way too much. That's just my opinion. I get it. But as far as taking punches and punishment over and over again, I think eventually it's going to wear on you as you grow in this sport.
I believe the same thing. And that's why there's a lot. It takes a community, it takes a village, it takes the trainers, it takes the officials, it takes the medical personnel to keep an eye on this situation. But it really falls into the referee's hands when the bout has begun. And at that moment, you have to be protecting that weaker boxer. So at any level, it comes down to that.
What are your tell signs in a fight that and kind of give us this right from the amateur level, and maybe you could clarify this for a lot of people out there, because I think there's a lot of confusion at times. Standing 8 count and stopping a fight.
Yeah.
Walk me through what a referee is looking for a standing 8, and what is a standing 8 count at the amateur level.
Yeah. It doesn't exist in the pro level, but it does exist in the amateur level, and it should exist in the amateur level. It's a great tool for a referee to use when he's seen in the amateurs where a fighter has taken that good, solid combination, and he doesn't really want to stop the fight, but he wants to give him that 8 to 10 second recovery time, and then assess his situation and allow it to continue or stop it. And that's different than in the pros. But I think that's a very good tool at that point. It's the same thing with if you think the ropes are keeping him up. It takes a shot, it goes into the ropes. You can call that a standing 8 count. You can actually do that in the pros too. If the ropes kept the fighter up, you want to use that standing 8 count, use it. It gives you a chance to evaluate that fighter. More important in the amateurs, I believe. I don't like to see it used in the pros. It's not used in the pros, but there was a time when it was. Mm-hmm. But I've used it where I thought the ropes were keeping up a fighter, and it gives you that chance to evaluate that fighter. It's a technique and a tool to utilize to save a fight, allow a fight to go on, where you may have acted, a little too quickly in stopping it. So I'm all for that. But you'll see it used more often in the younger amateurs. A younger amateur might just have taken one solid jab and rocked his head back, and you'll give him a standing 8 count. Well, if he's a more advanced amateur, you're going to allow a little bit more to develop before you go and jump into that 8 count. That and the The one big adjustment is the headgear that's used in the amateurs, and you don't have that in the pros. I remember my very first pro fight, realizing I got to make this adjustment, just like the fighters got to make adjustment to no headgear being used. Heads come together, but in the amateurs, you don't get that damage being done.
Yeah.
And in the pros, if there's just a slight bang, you get some damage being done.
Yeah, you can get a headbutt that forces a cut or a concussion or a lot
and
of...
most of it's unintentional, but there's some very advanced pro fighters out there who know how to use that at the right situation. And, you got to make that call on whether it was a punch or whether it was a headbutt, whether it was intentional, whether it was unintentional. So in the amateurs, you don't have that so much to deal with. You don't have so much of facial cuts, eyes cuts. You don't even have any clean knockouts in the amateurs because of headgear. So I'm okay with the headgear in the amateurs. It doesn't give them an identity to the fans. They don't even recognize them, but it's a tool. It's a safety issue.
Yeah. Stopping a fight, tough decision, whether it's an amateur, pro, we've seen it, right? Some we agree, some we don't. There's always that controversy. The ref stopped it too soon. I was all right, I was not. Or, you've heard the coaches, all of us are guilty of it. How does that come to you? Like, you're watching the fight. You're right there, and you see it.
Well, more so in the pros because you're privy to information that the audience doesn't know. You may have had a doctor or a commissioner before the bout say to you, "I'm not real comfortable with this opponent. He's had a major weight loss in the last bunch of years." I had that with a John Scully fight when referee John Scully against, I don't remember his opponent's name, at the New Haven Coliseum, and his Ernest Mayteen, and it was their second bout. It was their second bout. And Mayteen came in like 17 pounds over the weight limit. And John Burns pulls me aside, and, he wants to call this fight. He doesn't want to have it. And Scully pushed for the fight. I mean, he wanted it to go on. So Burns gave me strict instructions that Scully was on a very short leash that night. So I'm privy to that. But Scully did a great job, and it was a give and take fight right to the end. And, maybe 40, 50 seconds before the end of the round, Scully hurts Mayteen with a right hand. I mean, he really buckles him. And he grabs Scully, and he holds on. He's holding on for dear life. And I'm in there separating them. And I get them separated, and when I'm about to reprimand Mayteen for the holding, when I mentally realize the clock is ticking down, Scully kind of nudges me out of the way, and I back out of the way and let them go back at it. And the clock worn down because it was only a few seconds left. So it was a case of too little, too late, but he had him hurt. He had him going at that point. And it went the distance, and it went to the scorecards. But, going into that very early round, in that very first round, he was on a short leash, and I was on the strict instructions to make to that. But he never got in trouble in the fight. So, the audience is not privy to that. I've had them tell me, doctors beforehand, about a fighter's previous couple of fights where they suffered knockouts and, put him on a short leash. So, again, you've got that working as a referee.
Well, like now, especially the information's out there today is more so than years ago. Okay, you got his box rec. If he was KO'd the last 3 fights, was he under suspension? Did he cut? What is the situation with him?
Yeah.
Most referees that are working fights are, like you said, have information.
Yeah.
And we know, I'm not going to knock anybody, but we know certain commissions are right on point.
Yeah.
As opposed to maybe other ones that have different criteria. I mean, you fight in New York and Connecticut, that our commissions are just very, very strict.
Yeah, I've had
and
some great commissioners.
Yeah.
And John Burns was my first. and he was a strict disciplinarian, but he can also have a grandfatherly type personality to him too, which you didn't see too often. But when you did, he he made you feel good about it.
Well, there's a lot of things, right? So you look at, fighting in itself. A lot of people are responsible for those two people fighting.
Yeah, right.
So you have a commissioner, right, who has to make sure that these bouts are evenly matched or as close matched as we can make it, right?
Yeah.
Weights, right? Then we have a referee. Then we have the teams. Then we have the fighters,
Right.
and promoters, So everybody's got a hand in this boxing event here.
Yeah.
Not only is it the fighters, but there's a lot of people's reputations and licenses on the line here.
Right.
And you want to make good decisions and, obviously good fights. You want to make good fights.
Sure. As a referee, I did as many refereeing assignments as I did judging assignments. I got my first refereeing pro assignment on my 49th birthday. So I was kind of an old rookie when I entered the pros. I was going in there with seasoned refs who I watched on TV that were younger than me, 10 years younger than me or so. And I was lucky. I had some great mentors. My very first night, I worked with Johnny Callis and Steve Smoger.
Great people.
My first night.
Johnny's been on the show. Johnny, is a main. Steve Smoger. I mean, come on.
They were my first night. I mean, I had mentors like Arthur Mercanti Sr. out in New York. And it was just great to have guys like that. Dick Flaherty from Boston and did all those work with Mohegan Sun. So
what was your first pro fight?
My first pro fight was actually an amateur fighter that I was very familiar with because I'd refereed many of his amateur fights. Steve Mangine was my first pro fight, and Shaka Moore.
Oh, from Shaka Moore.
Yeah,
over there.
They didn't fight each other, but they were on the same card.
Okay.
Theater up in East Hartford on May 16th, 1999.
Oh, wow.
I turned 49 on May 15th, so the day before.
That was your first pro bout?
Yeah, it was my first pro stuff.
How many pro bouts did you referee?
That night?
No, total.
Oh, total. Probably about 80. I think BoxReds got me 67, but BoxRec started in 2000. And none of the stuff I did in 99 was on there. So if they got me at 67, I probably did about 80.
You got a memorable one?
Well, Scott Pemberton against Levon Eastley up at Foxwoods.
Foxwoods.
That was a great one.
That was Jimmy's fighter.
Yeah. He was a beast, and I'm lucky to get inducted with him in the same class.
Shout out to Scotty Pemberton, and I remember watching those fights on ESPN the Friday nights. Tuesday, Scotty Pemberton.
He had some wars with Omar Sheikha.
Omar Sheikha out of New Jersey.
Couple wars. He had the 2 wars with the fight I did, Levon Eastley. They had 2 wars, and he had wars with everybody. He's a great guy, too.
Yeah.
But I've done Dimitri Salita. I've done Andre Berto in the pros on HBO. Did Chad Dawson on the undercard of the Gaddy Ward 1.
Oh, wow.
So for Gaddy Ward 1, I got a great picture. It's an overhead picture of the ring. And I'm in that first row right behind the timekeeper.
Yeah.
So, and I'm right there in the red corner, in Gaddy's corner. It's right there above me. So there was so much going on in that fight. That was one of the most memorable nights I had. I had Chad Dawson on the undercard, but Chad knocked his guy out in the first round.
Yeah.
So I didn't get a lot of exposure on HBO.
You had a quick night.
Yeah. But the memorable, it was so memorable because of the event, and I knew it was going to be a great event that night. I was, there was another Connecticut show that went on that night in the Connecticut Convention Center, And when the assignments were going out, I was hoping I wasn't going to get called for that one.
Okay.
And I would get called for the Mohegan show. And I was lucky. I got called for the Mohegan show.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Gaddy Ward, come on.
Yeah, great. Yes,
You know,
absolutely. To have been a part of that, to referee the undercard, I was in the dressing room with Frank Cappuccino when he gave the instructions for that. And, as I said, I had so many good mentors. That was a learning experience. That was one of my major learning experiences, watching Frank Cappuccino in the dressing room. And he told me, this is where you get the respect, in this dressing room. He says, you blow it here, you're going to have a hard time in the ring. So, I learned a lot of dressing room demeanor and etiquette, and watching Frank work in the ring. It was like the Frank Sinatra of referees. He was just so cool. But if I did something like he did, I'd get in trouble for doing it. But I could see Frank Cappuccino. I'd watched him many times, just arms crossed, legs crossed, in the corner watching the fight like a fan, but in total control and managing that situation so perfectly. And he just made that fight a great fight, too. A lot of referees could have blown that fight. You wouldn't have had the classic fight that you had.
Well, if you had somebody trying to stop the momentum of the fight and not knowing how the two
and a lot of times you could have stopped the fight entirely and nobody would have blamed you for it either.
No one would have blamed you, but that comes down to knowing the fighters.
Exactly.
Knowing the style of Arturo Gatti and not Andre Ward. I want to say Mickey Ward.
Mickey Ward, yeah.
But you have to know, like,
Warriors.
So, let's talk about that for a second. Styles of the fighters when you're refereeing a fight. Now, you made a statement about the John Scully-Mateen fight when Commissioner Burns came over and kind of gave you some information to file for the fight. Now, you're reffing these fights, and a referee is picked to handle a bout like this. What's your preparation before? Like, I mean, you're not just walking to the arena that night and saying, "Hey, I'm reffing the fight." Are you doing, some video work, watching the fighters? So because the ring, as big as it looks, with the third person in there, is small. If that fight is moving and grooving, you have to make sure you're in a certain position to see things. Yeah. You have to make sure you're not in a position to take away from the action, get in the way of the fighters.
Right.
So you have to be able to dance as well as they do.
Yes. Well, unless you're in doing a world title fight, you almost don't know who you're getting on that card when you referee. When I got assignments, I didn't know who on the card I was doing.
Okay.
Now, that may be different now. I haven't reffed in the pros since 18, I believe, or judged up until 18. And so many of those assignments I got, I would study the whole card and wonder which runners I'm likely to get. Okay, and focus on if it
the
was
possibilities.
Which ones might fall in my. And sometimes you got 3 fights on a card. You might have the whole undercard. You might have the co-main event and a feature bout. So you didn't go in focused on those fighters that you knew you were going to get. You focused on almost every fighter on that card that you thought you might have. So I didn't know I was going to have John Scully's bout when I got there that night.
Yeah.
I refereed when I got there, and I got my assignment, and I saw I had that. I knew a lot of their previous history. I've seen their previous fight. I knew I might get that. Mm-hmm. So, I think I was even at their previous fight, which took place at the San Juan Center. So I knew their history, and being involved in the fight at the moment, a lot of that, you're dealing in the moment. And so you're watching for what's happening right now in this moment. And there was no time in that. A lot of great punches were exchanged. A lot of it was smothered. There was a lot of inside fighting going on. I'd have to break them a lot, but there was a lot of inside fighting going on in that fight. But there wasn't any moment where I thought one fighter over the other was in trouble until those closing seconds of the 10th round. And John did hurt him very well. I mean, he buckled him, he grabbed him, he held on, he was holding on for life at that point. A little too soon, too late. A little.
Yeah.
If he had maybe another minute in that round, might have had a different outcome.
Reffing multiple fights in a night, how hard is that for a ref?
It depends how many rounds you're actually doing, but I tell you, I seen Ricky Gonzalez recently just do an amazing thing of any referee I'd ever seen. I think he refereed 8 bouts at Mohegan Sun because the other referee wasn't there. And Ricky just went do one bout after another. It was amazing stamina. I in an amateur show one night, I did 22 bouts in one night. I was the chief of officials and didn't have any officials.
Have no backup, right?
Yeah, and I was filling score sheets out too because I had to act as a judge at the same time. So you got to be in shape. You got to have stamina. I'm 75 now. I still do a lot of road work, mostly walking and treadmill and that kind of thing. But I stay in shape. You can't not be if you're going to get in there and try to move around with young athletes.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll be 63 this year, and I try to, keep myself going because to work with the fighters, I'm in the ring. I don't work.
Depending on what your role is. I mean, in my particular case as a referee, it's footwork. So I don't do a lot of upper body strength. I do some, but I make sure I, do side to side and jogging side to side and things like that, twisting around, because I'm also very lucky. I've never had an injury, foot injury, ankle injury, knees.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood, really.
Knock on wood,
I never had that. And I was, for a lot of years, logged a lot of miles.
Was the transition from amateur to pro a tough transition for you?
Yes, and it's just as tough going back.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that,
Just as tough going back because that's what I'm doing now, for about a year and a half now. For a little bit, I wasn't doing anything. I was on the board of directors. I did the thing at the movie, but I wasn't really involved. I was going to some of the amateur shows, but Louis Rosa, who is the president now of the local LBC, he asked me to come back, and I thought about it, and I said, yeah, why not? Sure. I got more time, and, I love the kids. I love to help out. I didn't want to interrupt the status quo of officials who had their positions in place, and I didn't want to rock any of that, but I felt that I was being helpful, and, sometimes they need the bodies. They need good officials. So
you know what I find, right? And you can probably throw your 2 cents in here. As you and I are a little older in the sport and seeing different generationals, we're losing the next generation. I talk about this a lot with a lot of people. And I don't mean we're losing the next generation of not only fighters, but officials, trainers. It's not being passed down. Whereas, for me, I started at a professional level through great mentors, great trainers that I was able to work with and work under, right? And learn the craft, right? An apprenticeship, right?
Yeah.
So their knowledge and their experience is passed down, right? But now a lot of trainers out there, and they mean well, it's just we're not passing that knowledge down. And even at the level of officiating, judging, like you said, it takes a village. Yeah. Whether it's amateur or professional, it takes a village. And that's where, I don't know, I find it very difficult. And the people that are doing it, like yourself, other people on the boards, presidents, volunteers, it's all volunteer.
Oh, yeah.
It's all volunteer.
People think I get paid.
Yeah, people, and the other factor is, like you said, we do this because we love boxing. We're around, we travel. It's not about a salary or money. Right. It's because of the love of the game. That's what I tell people. But what do you see because now you're full circle, right? Coming out of semi-retirement, brought back into the game, right? A lot of experience, right? You started judging, you started reffing, amateur pro, a lot of. What do we need to do at the amateur level right now to build people in the sport? What do you think? What is your opinion and your experience? What do you see?
Yeah. Well, I do think we need officials for one, because the shows can't go on by having, understaffed.
Toughest spot. People don't want to be the ref,
and
the umpire.
I've tried recruiting that some level. I've given lectures in gyms. I've done social media trying to recruit officials. I can't get anybody to do this. But back in the 90s, I not had that same problem back then. And when I see it transferred to the pros, how that translates there, I came up with a great crew of officials, and that same crew of officials are still officiating. But when I was coming up, Ricky Gonzalez, Steve Willis, Eddie Claudio, these guys were with me in the amateurs. We were doing
Great
all
names.
the national tournaments, and then we got our pro licenses at the same time, and we were coming up. But now you look at them, they're veterans. They got tons of experience on every level. But who's come up underneath them? I do see some good younger guys. Eric Dolly's a great referee. I see him reffing, and he's younger than me. I did have a little crossover time with him and worked a few shows with him back in the day. He's somebody I got my eye on. But I'm not seeing a lot of other young pro officials coming up too. And when I say young, I'm talking maybe 40-something-year-olds who've already spent 5 to 10 years in the amateurs. I don't see that. In the pro level, my heart really kind of belongs in the amateur part of it.
Right.
I've seen both worlds. The pros were excitement galore and comradeship that I've had, a camaraderie with great officials, and memories that, of buildings and venues that I officiated.
Events, some great fights, right? And
But the amateurs really mean something to me from in the passion aspect of it. And that's all I intend to do right now. I don't plan on trying to make the pros again. Too old for that. I don't really even want to go there. If I could be of help in the amateurs, and that's where I'm at right now. And if I can help recruit and train some officials, that's where I'm at right now. We do have some good officials there that lead there. I'm very impressed with lead there, and he's very, very deeply involved, and he's taken on many roles since I've come along here with him. So he's leading the way as the new chief of officials. But we got to get him some referees. I find everybody wants to judge, and people want to time keep. Nobody wants to referee.
It's the referee because you're in the spotlight and you're under scrutiny.
Yes, that's probably the reason.
And look, boxing, there's 3 people.
Yeah.
Refs in football, okay, even though they wear the black and white.
Yeah.
You don't see them in the mix of the game so much till the call is made. Then they come in, they make the call.
Yeah.
Referee is right there the whole fight.
Yeah, right.
Under the scrutiny with the fighter.
Yeah.
Whatever that referee's doing or maybe not doing, you're being scrutinized by, now with pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Millions and millions of people around the world.
Yeah.
I don't know if people want to be the umpire or the referee. It's like, I want to be, but there is a need, like you said.
Yeah.
Judges, maybe it's a little easier, which we'll get to, for some people to learn.
I've made that transition from reffing to judging. I judged as many pro fights as I reffed.
Yeah.
But,
so I kind of think even as a trainer watching fights, no disrespect to anybody, I would not want to ref or judge unless somebody really gave me the ins and outs of how to do it.
Yeah.
Like,
And-
you know what I'm saying? Like, look,
That's
you
why
and
I got-
we can go down to the ball field and umpire a game of softball or whatever and be close, right? We'd be close, right? You know what I'm saying? Ball strike, out, safe, whatever it is. Boxing is just, there's a lot of stuff going on that you can't.
And not only that, but the bottom line is like, unlike any other sport, as the official, as the referee, you have their life in your hands. I mean, a guy can get killed in a football game. A guy can get killed in any sport, really.
But more so in boxing.
But boxing has that dangerous element to it. It's got that individual's health at stake. And as the referee, you have a big hand in that.
Well, a lot of people do. So, like, not only.
Oh, yeah. You wonder sometimes as a referee, why didn't the trainer stop the fight in the corner between rounds? He sent them out. Now I got to handle it, you know. But, you know, that thought crosses your mind too. You know, you just had him for a minute. Now I got to handle him for the next 3 minutes, and he's already staggering out of his corner, you know. So those situations have happened. But most trainers are like brothers to their fighters. And I've seen that. And they deserve a lot of credit for what they put into this fighter's life and training them and grooming them through life. I've seen that too, the mentorship that's involved. So I'm all about mentorship, and even as an official, I would like to mentor younger officials coming up. Not a big group coming up. I mean,
So here's something, right? In youth sports, I remember Little League Baseball at the younger level, they would let players umpire at a younger level, the younger kids. We have so many gyms with young fighters. To have a teenage fighter who shows some maturity, to referee the younger kids in these novice 1 minute bouts or these what are the other bouts where the coaches sit up on the ring and what do they call them?
The bouts.
At the amateur level, the coaches are able to be on the ring and coach their younger fighters.
Probably I haven't done those young
it's
fighters,
like an introductory type of.
Yeah.
But to have, like, maybe at these shows, to have an individual say, okay, I have a 16-year-old who's an elite or a well novice, been in the gym, say, look, you're gonna referee this fight. We're gonna help you.
Yeah.
We're gonna help you, right?
Yeah.
But you're gonna referee these young kids.
It's not a bad idea.
You know what I mean? Because the only way to cultivate is by, look, you have volunteers.
Yeah.
You got to find boxing people, right? People who maybe weren't trainers, maybe weren't fighters. You know, they want to be involved in the sport at some level. They want to volunteer. They want to mentor, right? Teachers. So we gotta build the village, right? We have to build it. And the only way to build it is now, right? You have a kid in a gym, right? Because you refed and you judged it and you hear it, right? Now he understands what's being seen between the referee's eyes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it could be something that we can build off of.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a story just like that. I mean, Bob Peterson, who I worked with. I don't know if you know Bobby, but he was an amateur boxer back in the 90s. And he wasn't going too much with the amateur boxing, wasn't too confident in his abilities, although he was pretty good. But he loved boxing. And he was trying to find his role there.
Right.
And Ken Ezzo was a referee and said to him, why don't you just try this? And he turned around and he became a very good amateur official who had some pro experience too. He did some pro stuff too. And I've done that with some fighters too that I've seen that they might not be going any place in their boxing career, and you could see it, but they got the drive, they got the passion for the sport. They want to find a way, a niche in the sport. That was me. I wasn't an amateur boxer, but I was struggling to find a niche in the sport. I was trying writing articles, in that way just to have some role in the sport. You know what I find? I don't find those passionate fans anymore, that grew up as young kids, that, like myself, as a 9-year-old fan who, through my life, wants to find a role in this sport. I know I'm not going to make a living there.
Yeah.
I have to have a career, but I find a place in the sport for myself?
But also, you know what? There's so much out there now. Us growing up, you're a little older than me, but, coming out of that, look, you got MMA, you got kickboxing.
Yeah, bare knuckle now.
You got bare knuckle, right? We have kids playing. Boxing's hard.
Yeah.
Some of these kids don't want to, other sports are falling off because of the effort that these kids. But you know what? And you know this as well as I do. And I tell people, look, you fight one amateur fight, 100 amateur fights, pro fights, whatever. Let's just talk about fighting one amateur fight. If you're in an accredited gym with an accredited coach and they take you to that fight, you've done a lot more than most of the people out there in society to go to that one fight. It's hard.
Well,
it's
the
not
courage
easy.
Alone.
The courage, right? The anxiety, but all the expectation of training, because a coach is not going to take you to a fight unless you check all the boxes.
Yeah, right.
You could play Little League Baseball, sign up your kids on the team. He's going to play at the end of the week.
Yeah.
Little League Baseball says you got to play 2 innings and get 1 at bat. That's the rule, right? Don't matter how good you are, how many practices you come to, whatever. Boxing, you got to check boxes because just like you said, the coach is going to say, hey, Joe, you're not coming to the gym. You're not in shape. You're not running. I'm not putting you in there. I don't care what your mommy or daddy says, whatever. I'm not taking the chance because you're not putting the effort in. You can get hurt here.
Yeah.
And you got to show me some effort and some accountability that you want to fight.
Yeah. Right.
Before I can put you in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, you know what? Some kids get it. Yeah. And they become, can't get them out of the gym.
Yeah.
They strive off of the sport.
Yeah.
Some kids come in, they do it for a little bit, and then they disappear.
Yeah, right. It's always been that way. I've seen it. But at the same time, I've seen boxing save people.
100%.
Save so many of them. And that's why I'm there to hopefully have a part in that aspect of the game, to show the opportunities that boxing can build your ego, your whole
your self-esteem.
Look. You don't have to be a professional fighter.
No, you don't even have to be.
Boxing doesn't produce a lot of professional fighters.
Listen, the first thing is this. The people come, I want to be, great, you want to be a world champion. That's a great aspiration. But the reality, the fact is the percentages don't play into that.
Yeah.
The percentages don't play into you becoming a successful, money-making pro. We can make pros all day long. Go get your license, right? You want to fight pro? We'll get your license, right? You know that aspect of the game.
Yeah.
But there's difference between making a pro, making a living, and being, successful in the sport, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the stories, like you said, look, boxing's life, right? We've watched the movies on TV, and we'll get into the Willie Pep story with you in a second. But, boxing's life. Rocky, look at it's still today. Movie kept going. But you know what? Fighters go through stuff, and you know this as well as I do. They have ups and downs of their life.
Yeah.
To get up every day to go train or to go to work or whatever, you have to file through that adversity every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boxing don't lie.
No,
Boxing exposes you if you.
It's a truth sport, that's for sure.
You're there. It's there. You either have to, rise up or lay down. That's what I kind of say. But
you could have been one of the kids like me who, back in the early 60s, late 50s, I was in the Boy Scouts, and it was not Boy Scouts, Boys Club.
Boys Club.
Yeah, and in my neighborhood, we had a Boys Club, and they had a boxing program.
They all had boxing programs.
Yeah, I think, Boy Scouts should have a boxing program.
Well,
high school.
We're starting to see colleges, and then you go back to the Boys Club, right? I come out of the same era, right?
Yeah.
So for me, for boxing, right? I was not a fighter.
No, I wasn't either. I tried it, and I knew this wasn't me. Yeah.
3 amateur fights, right? Loved the sport, right?
Yeah.
Started late. The way I ended up is because for conditioning purposes, you went to the boxing gym. My dad had a friend who was a trainer, and he would condition me, and then eventually, you're hitting the bag, and then you're doing this, and because there was no Planet Fitnesses in those days, and like you said, there was a boys club, also the PAL. We had the PAL.
Right. We didn't have one locally that I knew of. In fact, I can't ever think of New Haven ever having a PAL.
I know Connecticut.
Bridgeport, Waterbury, Hartford. I can't think of New Haven ever having a PAL. They may have.
Yeah.
But back in the amateur boxing days, it was AAU, it was called back then. And the boys club, New Haven Boys Club, had a boxing program.
Yeah.
But I knew I didn't fit into getting in the ring and fighting. That part of it wasn't me, but I still had the passion for it. I would go to the amateur fights as a kid with my father, and I had that passion. I don't see that in kids today. I can't get my own kids or my grandkids to like boxing.
It's
they'll be at my induction. They don't know anything about boxing.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because you're in it and and even though the community is small, I mean, it's just so many good people in the sport of boxing, and but you've been blessed. So tell us a little bit about the Willie Pep story and what role you played into it. And, the movie The Featherweight, filmed in Hartford.
Yeah. Well, as it turned out, I mean, I first met Willie as a kid. I was about 13 years old. And that's 1963, and he was in his middle of his comeback at that point. And he was I'm in New Haven. He's a big celebrity local at the time. Anybody who knew anything about boxing knew who he was, and a lot more people knew boxing back in those days.
Yeah.
And I was skipping school one day with a friend of mine, and in downtown New Haven, walking through the parking lot, and saw him. And hey, champ, and he was very friendly to me, and my friend. And out of nowhere, he says to me, "How's your father doing?" I said, "Good." He said, "Tell him the champ said hello." I said, "Okay." So I go home that night. Can't tell my father I was skipping school,
right,
and met Willie Pep. But I say, "Hey, Dad, did you ever meet Willie Pep?" And I said, "Dad, you know who Willie Pep is?" He says, "Sure, everybody knows Willie Pep." I said, "Did you ever meet him?" He says, No, I never met him." So I don't know. I think it was just Willie keeping the conversation going with me, and I never forgot it. And then I met him a lot in the 90s when I was the chief of officials, and he would come to a lot of the amateur shows. And I would always greet him, make sure he and his son, had the best seats, and he was around a lot. I went to his 75th birthday party at Mark Anthony's on the Berlin Turnpike. Now I'm 75. I thought he was old when I went to his party. But, I guess it's about 3 years ago now, I was in the middle of doing nothing with boxing, really. Still had all my friends in the sport and everything. And one day I get a call from Danny Schiavone, as a matter of fact, who's also in the movie. And he said that they needed another referee for a scene. And, you mean Johnny Callis recommended you for the park, and you got it. It's this such a day. He said the producer's going to call you. I said, okay. So that's as easy as it came up. He called me up, and he set me up for the date to come in. And I spent the whole day there doing what was a few seconds on the screen. But it was a whole day spent there, and it was quite an experience to be there and watching some of the other scenes that were being done too. So until the movie came out, I didn't know how much of what I had done,
was it going to be there or not? Right?
Yeah, they had me. As a matter of fact, for 45 minutes with the camera on me, they had me moving around the ring like a referee, just doing my moves, and no fighters in the ring. Then they bring the fighters in the ring, who was the actor James Matteo and Mike Oliver. And they have them moving around doing sparring, but I'm not in the ring. So I can't mentally picture how this is going to happen. But when the scene is done,
They cut it all together.
yeah, they got it all together. And it's the end of the movie, but it's a good scene, and it's got a big close-up. Did you ever see the movie?
I have not seen the
Yeah.
movie.
It's available on YouTube. YouTube.
YouTube
You
and
can-
Amazon, yeah, I
You can
believe.
rent it.
Yeah.
It's on Hulu and a few others. I've been to a couple of the premieres. We had the premiere up at the Bushnell up in Hartford, and then another theater out in Stamford, I believe, Norwalk. So, it was nice being a part of it. It was great being a part of it, and
Well, you got a
to
little
just
history
be a
there.
part of a movie where he was one of my childhood heroes. That was something.
Well, see, that's the funny thing about boxing, right? Like it evolves into certain things, and
Yeah.
And then I went to an event in Long Island last week, and Ray Mancini was there, and I have an association with Ray going back.
I saw the picture on
through
Facebook.
friends, and to see him and some of his relatives and talk about our association, and he was like, and people looking like, they're coming up to him, and I'm like, we're just talking, like picking it up after 25 years,
Yeah.
But that's how boxing just kind of goes around with that.
Mm-hmm.
But also writing stuff and being informative in the sport. Tell us a little bit about that. What have you written?
Well, that was a very long time ago, and all
So
I
nothing recently
were a
in
few
that.
articles, mostly about Marlon Starlin when Marlon was fighting. I had a couple of things published in some local newspapers, and then when Marlon came home after winning the title, I'd gotten something published, but no, nothing that has any credibility. But I do like to write, and over the years, as I've been writing some stories from my career, I decided a couple of years ago that I like to actually write a fictional journey of my life, 50 years as a barber and 33 years as a boxing referee. I created some characters, and
So probably between both the barbershop and referees, you got some character
I got
stories.
some great stories, yes. And I had to find a way to put them together, and I did. But I couldn't do it as a first-person biography. I had to create characters, so I created characters based on me and based on the people that I've been involved with in boxing, and took some of those stories and fictionalized them. But they all have an element of truth to them, and they carry my journey from the beginning to the end, right to the movie, and even back into volunteering into the amateurs right now. So it's a fictional tapestry. I call it faction.
Yeah.
So it's a blend.
And now with all of this leads up to October 18th. Tell me about when you got the call to be inducted.
That was great. I served on the board of directors for a couple of years. And my name had come up a couple of times during the nomination process, so I was very familiar with the process of how one got to the point of being inducted.
Tell us about the process and how you get nominated for this.
We have a big list that it's probably got 150 names on it, and Mark Allen Baker is a great historian.
Yeah. I've been talking to Mark, and I'm looking forward to meeting Mark on October 18th.
Yes, you need to do a podcast with Mark.
Yeah, we've been
Mark
talking.
is a great historian. I've read almost all his books.
He's sent me his books.
Yeah, I've read almost all of them. He worked with me on helping me with my book. But he's basically the historian of the board of directors.
Okay.
So, he would, each one of the members might put forth some names of who we might want to get some consideration for, build together a resume of that individual, a bio. Maybe we have a couple of individuals we have in mind that we want to promote along the way through this process. It's in a series of meetings that goes on, and through those meetings, we review. We review the past nominees that have made that list. We review some of those names that have come forth. And then it goes through a voting process, and about 25 different people have a vote. And you may have a whole list of names on there. So you're going to come down to the bottom 12, the top 12, the 12 biggest vote getters in that list. And then it's going to go around again, that list of the top 12 are going to go around again and whittle down to the top 6. And that's how you get, that's the process.
Yeah.
But, those lot of names from that have been on that list for a while too, that get another look at, my name was on the list for a few years, got another look. See, I resigned from the board because I couldn't keep up with a lot of the activities that I had going on. I got involved with the amateur boxing program again. So I fulfilled my obligation with the board up until last year's induction. And then, as it would happen, on last year's induction night, which I would have loved to have gone to because I wanted to be there for Louis Rosa, I had an amateur boxing show to do. And I actually really had to make a
decision.
And they didn't have enough officials on the amateur boxing show. I did 2 shows that weekend, one in Stamford at a hotel, and one and then I had to cross all the way over to the state to go to, can't even think of that name, it's the Brooklyn, Connecticut, a little small town.
Oh, yeah.
Long way away.
Long way up on the border there.
And that was all going on at the same time as the induction.
Yeah, last year's induction was tough because you had Jimmy doing a show at Mohegan that night.
Right.
You had 2 amateur shows going on.
Yeah.
So it was tough this year.
It was bad timing on that one.
Yeah.
So I fulfilled my duties to the board up to that point, and then I just wanted to commit myself to the amateurs more. And so I resigned. And I'm glad I did, only because I didn't want to be on the board on the year that I was inducted. If that were to happen. So that had some decisions on me too. I said, my name's still there. I didn't want to be a part of the voting process because you got a lot of weight in that voting process. And I didn't want to be pushing myself.
Yeah, understood.
There's some people I want to see get recognized. Ken Ezzo belongs in the Hall of Fame. His name is there. He deserves it. He's put a lot of years in. He's mentored a lot of people. And to me, that's a lot,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but your name's in there with a lot of people.
Yeah, there are a lot of other names in there. I mean, there's a lot of fighters from New England that made a lot of their reputations in Connecticut with the casinos. That's why this year you got Scott Pemberton going in.
Peter Manfredo Sr. as a trainer going in there.
Yeah. And Scott Pemberton's fights were very memorable.
Matt Godfrey.
Yeah, Matt Godfrey. So that's weighed in too, whether you were a Connecticut resident, whether your career was built in Connecticut, all that stuff. You have to have that connection to Connecticut to make it there.
Yeah.
To get it. Yeah. And it should be that way. But it should be open for a lot of New Englanders too. They fight here in Connecticut at the
casino's
casinos.
Been come home for all the New England fighters,
right.
More so than anywhere else now, especially early in their careers with Foxwoods and Mohegan. Building a reputation, great fights in those casinos. We've seen over and over many great fights, many great fighters fighting there. Yeah. So were you surprised when you got the call?
Yes, actually I was. I'm friends with, everybody on the board. They're all friends of mine. We all got history together. We go back a long way. We all know each other's history, so we call each other anyway. And one day Mark Baker called me, and it wasn't like out of the blue to see his name on my caller ID and answer the phone. So nothing was lighting up with me that, this is the call,
Yeah.
It was just small talk. And when he said that to me, I lit up quite a bit. It was like a light bulb.
Is he the guy who generally makes the call, or did he make it to you
No,
because
I
of
think
your
that,
friendship?
I remember that I made the call to Tarvis Sims that year. And so when we're having our board meeting and we come down to the final 6, okay, who wants to call? Who wants to make the call? So sometimes we have a little connection to somebody. We'll say, let me call so-and-so. I'll call so-and-so. So I'm assuming that that's how that went down, because the year before when I sat there, I said, let me call Tarvis. I got a little connection with Tarvis. Let me make the one. So it probably came about that way. Although I have a connection to all those guys. Don Trella, we go back a long way. Don Trella is such a great judge.
Oh, man.
Let me tell you something about Don Trella. We went to an amateur national tournament. I think it was in Kansas City, National PAL tournament. He was just coming up. I was the chief of officials. I knew a lot of people in the amateurs, the officials from all over the country. It was Don's first exposure. And he was on the right side on every single call at the end of that tournament, the right side on every one. So when it came to getting the judge of the tournament award, I fought real hard for him, but politics came in and somebody else got the call.
Got the nod,
he was new, and I just knew this was a guy.
Don gave great insight.
He doesn't blink.
He gave great insight on the, and then, we got to see him on the undercard of Canelo and Crawford. Yeah. He judged the Callum Walsh Vargas fight. Yeah. So, it was good to see that. But, your name is in there with a lot of greats, just to show how good our state is right now. Yeah. With not only fighters, but, some of the best officials.
Yeah, Glenn Feldman. I mean, on the scene for so many years.
Johnny Callis, many others.
John Callis is
judges, Don Treller. Got Frank Lombardi, who was brought in last year.
Got Mike Ortega coming back.
So, just a lot of great people in Connecticut coming up. Going to be a great night, October 18th. We're going to be filming it. Coach's Corner will be there, so we're going to interview again. Going to try to sit down with Mark Baker. I've been talking to him a little bit here and there. I know he's coming up from Florida, so I'm going to try to get Mark.
Baker. Mark Baker. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to get 20 minutes, 30 minutes with him on a sidebar. Yeah. Katie Taylor's guest speaker that night, honoree. That's going to be an awesome thing. Plus all the fighters coming in. Yeah. Trainers. And
who's going to be the main host? I know
I don't know. We had David Diamante last year. I don't know. I sent an email back to Robin Hayes today. I didn't ask her that. So I don't know. David was great. Yeah. I got to interview David, and he gave his. Yeah. I mean, I've
had him, host me on HBO show.
And then obviously, I've been to his establishment, Diamante's in New York.
Do that.
I was there last year with Scully. Scully did you got to go there.
Yeah, I got to
It's just
that,
a great place. But look, Joe, we're going to kind of wrap it up here. Yeah. It's been an honor to have you.
It's been a pleasure.
And,
thank you. Thank you
congratulations again. Wish you from Coach's Corner and everybody here. Yeah. Big congratulations. We'll look forward to speaking with you again on October 18th at Mohegan Sun.
I'll be there for the day if you're around during the day. And
yeah, we're gonna be setting up. So yeah,
I'm gonna try to help them set up as well.
We'll be there early. So yeah, maybe we can get together and kind of coordinate. And if there's anybody else that you feel, I want to get the president of the Boxing Hall of Fame,
John Ladotti, to say
a few words.
Does a great job.
Yeah, and I've spoken to him, but I haven't met him in person. Yeah. So I think it's only right that he says a few words. Yeah. I don't want to really miss anybody this year, but we're really excited about that. You know, we're excited to see you back in the game at USA Boxing in Connecticut as far as the officials, and you know, whatever we can do at Champs Boxing in Danbury to be an assistant, please feel free to call upon us. Our gym is an open door for anybody. We just want to make boxing great again.
Thank you.
You know, thank you again for being on Coach's Corner. And you know, Joe Cusano, 2025 Connecticut Boxing Hall of Fame, judge, official, referee, been in the sport a long time. Big congratulations from Coach's Corner. And, you know, once again, we're not here without our people. You know, to my guy Ian Bick and Matt Cronin, you know, get Elevated Apparel, Farmer Strength, BoxingSupply.com. We got Foundation RX in Brookfield and, you know, Champs Boxing. These guys are just, you know, all my village that helped me in putting this all together. So, you know, once again, Coach Dave McDonough, train hard, train smart, and we'll see you in the next round.